third graders. Today we are going to be doing lesson 10.4, use time intervals. We are still working with elapsed time, the amount of time that passes from the start of an activity to the end of the activity. For the lesson today, you're going to be given the start time or the end time and the elapsed time, and then you have to figure out what the end time would be if it gives you the start time, and what the start time would be if it gives you the end time, okay? We can use number line and little clocks. Now I know you might not have these little clocks at home, but in Go Math on the Lesson, sometimes they give you the analog clocks to use. You can always draw an analog clock and put the numbers on it if you like doing that, okay? Remember, an analog clock has it's sometimes called the face clock, and it has the numbers on it. Each number on the analog clock goes up by 5, okay? So here, our start time is 1:40. So if I use a number line and I have a start time of 1:40, I will be counting up on the number line. If I'm given the start time, I need to find the end time. Here I have it labeled PM. Remember, PM is the time after 12 noon and before midnight. AM is the time after midnight and before 12 noon, okay? So this is in the afternoon. So the start time is 1:40. Elapsed time is 33 minutes. So I can count up in intervals of 10. So I'm adding 33. So if I add 10 to 1:40, it's 1:50. If I'm adding another 10 to 1:50, it's 2 o'clock. Remember, there are 60 minutes in an hour, okay? I can add another 10 minutes, and it's 2:10. So I've added 10, 20, 30. I just have to add 3 more. And the end time would be 2:13 p.m. because I'm in the afternoon, okay? Here's another start time. Start at 9:55 a.m. in the morning, and the elapsed time is 27 minutes. So if I'm given the start time, I count up on the number line. I'm adding these minutes. So since I'm 5 minutes away from 10 o'clock, I'm going to start by adding the 5 minutes. Okay, so that gives me right at 10 o'clock. Now, if I already added 5 minutes, I just have 22 minutes left to add. Now, you could break that 22 apart into 2 intervals of 10 and 1 interval of 2, but I made a mistake right there. I added 5 minutes to 9:55, and the time should be 10 o'clock, not 10:10, okay? So I'm right at 10 o'clock. So all I have to do, I could break that 22 minutes up, but I'm just gonna add the 22 minutes, and it's 10:22, okay? So here I added 27 minutes, and the start time was 9:55. Now what if they give you an end time? Could I use the number line and start with 3:05 here? No, if they give me the end time, I need to start at the other end of the number line, and I need to subtract the elapsed time because I need to find the start time. So here we will be subtracting on the number line, okay? So I have a total of 40 minutes. Now I'm at 3:05, I want to get to 3 o'clock. So I will start by subtracting 5. And that will take me right to 3 o'clock. Now, I am going to subtract 30. This jump is going to be 30 this time, because when I'm using time, 30 is half an hour. So I know if I'm at 3 o'clock, if I subtract 30, it would be 2:30. So I did 30, I did 5, I only have 5 more minutes to subtract. And then it would be 2:25 would be my start time. So I'm going backwards when I have to find the start time. Now, if you used a clock, if the end time was 3:05, there's 3:05, and I have to subtract 40 minutes. So I could just count backwards on the clock by fives. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. And I am at 2:25. So you can use a number line or an analog clock for any of the problems. Okay, we have one more in here before we get to our story problem. So the end time, they give me the end time, so I have to start on the right side of the number line. This is the end time. I need to find out what time the activity began, and I have to subtract 16 minutes because that's how much time passed between the start and the end. So I'm going to subtract 6 minutes because that will get me right to 8 o'clock. So if I subtract 6 minutes, I'm at 8 o'clock. I subtracted 6 of those 16, so I have 10 more to subtract. So I subtract 10, and that takes me to 7:50. Remember, when you're subtracting on this number line, we're not using hundreds like we do, tens and hundreds like we do when we're subtracting numbers. We're subtracting the whole hour is just 60, okay? And we do subtract in groups of 10, but the whole is 60. So here I wouldn't say 790 because that's not a time. There are 60 minutes in an hour, okay? We are going to do one story problem together. Let me get this erased. All right. So listen very carefully, okay? Susie began fishing at 10:30 a.m. and fished until 11:10 a.m. James finished fishing at 11:45. He fished the same length of time as Susie. At what time did James start fishing? So this is a two-part story problem. I have to first figure out how long Susie fished because she fished for the same amount of time as James. So it says Susie began at 10:30 and she fished until 11:10. So I first have to figure out the elapsed time. The elapsed time is not given to me. So I can use the number line. So I start at 10:30. If I add 30 minutes, it takes me to 11 o'clock. I add another 10, and it takes me to 11:10. So Susie fished for 40 minutes. But remember, that's just the first part of my story problem. Here's the second part. James finished fishing at 11:45 a.m. He fished the same length of time. At what time did James start fishing? So here we have the ending time. Ending time is 11:45. And the elapsed time, it said the same amount of time. So the elapsed time was 40 minutes. Now I first have to ask myself, am I given the start time or the ending time? Because that depends on which way I go on the number line. I have the end time here. So my end time needs to be on the right side because I will be subtracting, okay? So I'm going to subtract 30 minutes when I'm working with time. Sometimes it's easy to subtract in groups of 15 and 30 with a quarter hour and a half hour. So I subtracted a half hour. So 11:45, take away 30 minutes, would be 11:15. And then I have another 10 to subtract, 11:05. So the start time would be 11:05. And remember, you can also use an analog clock, or you can draw a picture of an analog clock if you like working with the numbers on the face of the clock. So if I started at 11:45, Okay, well actually he ended at 11:45, and then I count backwards by fives. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So he started fishing at 11:05. Okay, so you can do your personal math trainer. Be sure to watch the videos. Be sure to do both whistles. It's a really good idea, especially when you're figuring out problems with a number line, to use an extra piece of paper. Make sure to check your answers before you go on to the next one. If you want to print out the practice book pages, remember they can be found in your library. Your personal math trainer is under things to do. Okay, good luck, and I'll see you later. Bye, third graders.